just seems sad to see that every time they have to have one of these facilities for a mine, it's always located right next to a creek. The one that's being proposed for the Southern Cabinets, the Rock Creek project, is going to be right adjacent to Rock Creek. And Rock Creek, it's a stone's throw, maybe 200, 300 yards from the Clark Fork River itself. And my concerns there are that this facility right here is in what I would call a real decrepit condition. Nobody knows what's going on inside the tailings pond. Nobody's making the effort to determine what's going on in the inside, and yet we're having another facility that's exactly the same as this being proposed right down in that neck of the woods, you know. And for anybody that's never been down to Lake Pend Oreille, the Clark Fork empties right into Lake Pend Oreille, and that's one of the crown jewels of the Pacific Northwest out here. And I personally feel that, boy, if this facility here can't be operated properly, we have no business. ASARCO has no business. The state has no business giving them a permit to start operating another such facility. Water's the elixir of life. You don't live long without it.
At one time, the president of Anaconda was the governor of Montana. They've always been oriented toward pleasing mining companies. And I think that mentality has come down to this day. The whole attitude in Helena is the mining companies are to be pleased. ASARCO asked the state if they could stop monitoring in Lake Creek, the creek that drains the whole drainage. They could stop monitoring for iron, manganese, and sulfate. And the state said yes. The state agencies simply don't want to enforce the water quality laws. Their attitude is steeped in the history of Montana. When the president of Anaconda was the governor of Montana, you please the mining companies, you do what they say, and don't ask too many questions. And that attitude controls the thinking of any personnel in Helena. As soon as a problem would arise, an indication in the monitoring of a possible water quality problem, ASARCO would ask the state, we don't want to monitor there, or we don't want to monitor for that anymore, and the state would comply. The tailings pond has developed several seeps which are pouring directly into Lake Creek, and they're high, especially in iron, manganese, and sulfate. And those three elements are classical indicators of acid mine drainage problems. And so it causes one to suspect that the tailings pond and the sulfide minerals within it are developing acid mine drainage, which is a very serious problem for the future. The Water Quality Bureau is responsible for water quality issues, but the Department of State Lands has the ultimate authority. And whenever ASARCO wants anything to be shoved under the table, they ask the Department of State Lands, and the Department of State Lands has the authority even if the Water Quality Bureau objects. It's a tragedy to the wilderness, the small amount of wilderness that we have, to see a mine going in. And the metals are lead, copper, arsenic, cadmium, silver, zinc. The very, very toxic metals that degrade the water, that degrade the life in the water at extremely, extremely low concentrations. So we have to take into account how much lead, how much copper, how much arsenic is going downstream, and we need to be responsible for those hundreds of pounds of lead and arsenic and copper going down the stream. Where are they going? And what are they going to, what kind of life are they going to interfere with? Wherever. You know, we can't just be responsible for this little 10 feet of river. We're responsible for the whole river.
You can see the moss in my right hand, and the vegetation is still alive, it's still green. And the one on the left is dying, it's turned brown already. Contaminated with the mine tailings from the mine, coming down from the Landusky mine.
From my perspective, as an employee of the Department of Health's Air Quality Bureau, I believe there is a potential health risk in the East Helena area. I have to admit, though, there has not been any great amount of direct evidence of direct health effects on the people. Studies that were done earlier have only shown that one child actually in the area had elevated blood lead levels. One thing we do know for sure, though, in the East Helena area, that the smelter itself, after 100 years of smelting, has deposited considerable amounts of cadmium, lead, and arsenic on the area, and it's also been responsible for contaminating the air.
They claim there's a lot of lead now, but I don't think there is. It hasn't hurt us. We are 100% for the smelter. We want it to keep on running.
Well, I feel that there definitely is a problem day to day. They for a number of years, since lead and other heavy metals have been tested in East Helena Gardens, have consistently found that they are higher.
ASARCO is no patriotic American corporation. ASARCO has no loyalty to this country or any country. ASARCO is loyal to one thing, and that's called profit. They don't care about you. They don't care about America. They don't care about your rights or freedoms. All they care about is making money.
Yeah, my name is Jake Krylik, and I've been working in the Kootenai National Forest for the last 3 years as a tree planter, and since then I've become increasingly irate with the U.S. Forest Service mismanagement of this forest. Tonight's hearing, the DEIS on the Noranda-Montanore project is the most recent example of the Forest Service and the state of Montana's total disregard for the Cabinet Mountain ecosystem, and also an indication of their unbending loyalty to large multinational corporations. It seems to me that this is just another quick fix designed to save Libby's economy. I don't believe that these corporations, Noranda and also ASARCO, will give Lincoln County a shot in the arm. A closer look at these companies will reveal that their intent, beyond extracting millions of tons of ore, is also to extract the profits and take them elsewhere. The temporary jobs that are created will neither stabilize nor sustain Libby's economy. Higher housing prices and increased costs of doing government business will, in my mind, make Libby a less attractive place to live. My true feelings are that the Cabinet Mountains are the backbone of Libby. You look right out and you see it. And to me, also of the region in general. To jeopardize the ecological health of these mountains is to remove the vitality not only of the natural communities, the plant animal communities, but also of the human community that lives at the base of these mountains. I would argue that Noranda and the agencies involved have not proved to me or to anybody else that they can protect the biodiversity, the water and the air quality, the wilderness integrity, or the recreational opportunities in the cabinets. Therefore, I don't think that they should be granted a permit. To me, the values and qualities that I just described will sustain Libby far longer than Noranda or ASARCO ever will. Thank you.
Well, my history with the ASARCO and the grizzly bear in western Montana goes way back to before ASARCO came to the area when the proposal was put forward. I knew ASARCO, I knew they weren't a good outfit, and I wrote this letter, in fact, to Julian, saying that we should not welcome them to Montana because they had a worldwide reputation that was very, very poor. I said they would do nothing but bring grief to Montana and to the grizzly bear and to the wilderness and to the quality of life in Montana. They, of course, got very angry about that.
ASARCO has a horrible environmental history. You can look at the record in the state of Idaho, you can look at it in Colorado, you can look at it at their smelters that they've had at Tacoma, Washington, and the current lead smelter in Helena. All of them have regularly violated environmental laws. You can add to that that they are the owners of about 12 Superfund hazardous waste sites in the United States. You can see that, as well as a part owner of an asbestos company that has got quite a few lawsuits pending against it. That environmental protection is obviously not a real high priority with ASARCO. And frankly, in our estimation of the mining industry in the region, is that they're kind of at the bottom of the barrel in terms of making environmental concerns a corporate priority. There's some companies that are coming around. ASARCO isn't.
So the protective things in terms of the habitat have not been dealt with properly. The Cabinet Wilderness, which is a very important unit of wilderness, has never been expanded and designated properly by the Forest Service. They've refused to take the responsibility as the leading land management agency in the area to safeguard the grizzly against these additional mining impacts. The research hasn't been done. The state and the federal government are responsible for documenting the status of the habitat and the status of the bear. They've done it, but they've done it in a very low-key way compared to research elsewhere in the state. And it's quite clear to me that there's been enormous economic and political pressure on the two key agencies, the State Fish and Game and the U.S. Forest Service, to butt out when it comes to Cabinet Mountains, when it comes to ASARCO, when it comes to Noranda, and when it comes to the status of the grizzly bear in that area. At least 10 years ago, I said, look, if we aren't going to do the job right, let's delist the grizzly bear and kiss him goodbye in that area. Let's not pretend. Let's not make all kinds of fake statements and fake policies and such. If we really mean what we want the grizzly bear in the area, let's do it right, and that's not been done.
So when an outside company like ASARCO, a New York-based company, comes into the state and says, look, you guys, we can give you 350 jobs in 5 years, and if you don't give us any hassle about our pollutants, you'll see we're taking a page out of history in the state of Montana. When outside interest comes in here and says they're going to hire a bunch of people, a lot of people in the state put on blinders in terms of what some of the long-term environmental and social impacts of that proposal for jobs is going to be. It's happened time and time again. What I see happening with the ASARCO's project and with other mining companies in the state, they're really practicing essentially sort of the same sales pitch that the old Anaconda company practiced in the state of Montana for about 80 years. Anaconda, of course, ran the state of Montana, ran the legislature, ran the newspapers for an awful long time. And now we have companies coming in with the same sales pitch. Don't give us any trouble, and you'll have some jobs. what these guys are using for their sewage plant is the groundwater in the river.
Miner's life is like a sailor aboard a ship to cross the waves. Every day his life's in danger, still he ventures being brave. Watch for rocks, they're falling daily. Careless miners always fail. Keep your hand upon the dollar and your eye upon the scale. Union miners stand together, heed no operator's tale. Keep your hand upon the dollar and your eye upon the scale. You've been breathing diesel fumes and you've been loading 2 to 1. What have you to show for working since this mining life's begun? Overalls and silicosis, toxic water in your pail. Keep your hand upon the dollar and your eye upon the scale. Union miners stand together, heed no operator's tale. Keep your hand upon the dollar and your eye upon the scale. In conclusion, bear in memory, keep the password in your mind. God provides for every nation when in union they combine. Stand like men and linked together, victory we shall prevail. Keep your hand upon the dollar and your eye upon the scale. Union miners stand together, heed no operator's tale. Keep your hand upon the dollar and your eye upon the scale. Union miners stand together, heed no operator's tale. Keep your hand upon the dollar and your eye